The alarms were screaming across every channel in the galaxy. Red lights flashed on 1,000 different ships. Warning messages appeared on screens from one end of known space to the other. Something very bad had happened. Commander Rellos stood in the control room of containment, Station Omega-7. His 8 limbs were shaking. His 3 eyes were wide with fear. He had served the Galactic Council for 200 years. He had seen wars. He had seen plagues. He had seen stars die. But he had never felt fear like this. How did it escape? He asked. His voice was quiet. He already knew the answer would not matter. The power failed for 3 seconds, said one of his officers. Just 3 seconds. That was enough. 3 seconds. That was all it took for the most dangerous creature in recorded history to break free from the strongest prison ever built. Specimen X0. That was its official name. It had many other names across the galaxy. The Endless Hunger. The Shape Without Form. The Last Thing You See. Every species that had encountered it had given it a name. Most of those species no longer existed. The creature had no fixed shape. It was like living darkness. It could become anything it wanted. It could grow claws or teeth or tentacles. It could become small enough to hide in shadows or large enough to swallow a ship. It learned from everything it killed. It absorbed the traits of its victims. It had been doing this for thousands of years. Over 4,000 confirmed kills. 12 star systems touched by its terror. 3 entire civilizations wiped out. And now it was free. Where is it going? Rellos asked. His officer checked the tracking data. The creature had attached itself to a cargo ship just before the ship jumped to hyperspace. They traced the ship's destination, and the officer's face went pale. Earth, he said. It is going to Earth. Rellos had heard of Earth, a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. The humans lived there. They were a young species. They'd only been part of the Galactic Council for about 50 years. They were not very advanced compared to other species. They had no great weapons. They had no powerful armies. They were soft and weak and lived very short lives. They would have no chance against Specimen X0. How long until we can reach Earth? Rellos asked. 6 of their days, Commander. Maybe 5 if we push the engines. 6 days. The creature could kill millions in 6 days. It could consume entire cities. By the time they arrived, there might be nothing left but bones and silence. Rellos closed his 3 eyes. He had failed. The galaxy had trusted him to keep this monster locked away, and he had failed. Send the warning to Earth, he ordered. Tell them to evacuate. Tell them to run. Tell them that death is coming. But even as he gave the order, Rellos knew it would not help. You could not run from Specimen X0. You could not hide from it. You could only die. Far across the galaxy, the cargo ship dropped out of hyperspace above a small blue planet. The creature detached itself from the ship's hull. It drifted down through the atmosphere like a falling shadow. It was hungry. It was always hungry. And it could smell the life below. Billions of living things waiting to be consumed. The creature landed in a city called Bizan. It was night there. The streets were mostly empty. The creature moved through the darkness, looking for a place to rest. It needed to recover from the long journey. It needed to prepare for the hunt. It found a building, small, quiet. The lights were on and only one window. The creature squeezed through a crack in the wall and entered a storage room. It pulled itself in the corner like spilled ink and waited. Inside the building, a young man named Park Do-yun was having a very boring night. Do-yun worked for a small company called Hammett Interstellar Logistics. They helped move cargo between Earth and other planets. It was not exciting work. Mostly he sat at his desk and filled out forms. Tonight he was working late because the quarterly reports were due tomorrow and his boss would be angry If they were not finished, he was alone in the office. His coworker, Yuna, had gone home hours ago. The only sounds were the hum of the computer and the buzz of the old lights above his head. Do-yoon yawned. He looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. He still had at least 2 more hours of work. He decided to make some coffee. As he walked toward the break room, he heard something strange. A wet sound, like something heavy and damp was moving across the floor. It came from the storage room at the end of the hall. Do-yoon stopped. The storage room was supposed to be empty. They only kept old files and broken office equipment in there. Nobody ever went inside. He should have called someone. He should have left the building. He should have done many things. But Do-yoon was tired, and the reports were due, and he did not have time for mysteries. He walked to the storage room door. He put his hand on the handle. He took a breath. He opened the door. At first, he saw nothing. The room was dark. The single light bulb had burned out months ago, and nobody had replaced it. But then his eyes adjusted. There was something in the corner. Something dark and wet and wrong. It was like a pool of living shadow. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. And as Do-yoon watched, eyes began to open across its surface. Dozens of eyes. All different sizes. All different colors. All looking directly at him. Do-yoon stood very still. The creatures stood very still. They looked at each other in the darkness of a storage room in Bizen, at the edge of the galaxy, in the middle of the night. Do-yoon's brain was telling him to run. His legs were not listening. He just stood there, frozen, staring at the most dangerous creature in the entire universe. The creature stared back. It was confused. Usually by now, the screaming had started. Usually by now, there was running and crying and the delicious smell of fear. But this human just stood there, blinking, not moving. Not running. The creature did not know what to do. In 4,000 years of hunting, nothing like this had ever happened before. Do-yoon finally found his voice. It was not a scream. It was not a cry for help. It was something much stranger. "Oh no," he said quietly. "Please do not be a problem. I really need to finish those reports." Do-yoon did not sleep that night. He also did not die, which surprised him a little. After standing in the doorway for what felt like forever, he had slowly backed away from the storage room. The creature had not followed him. It just stayed in its corner, watching him with all those eyes. Do-yoon had returned to his desk and finished his quarterly reports. His hands were shaking the entire time, but he finished them. His boss would have been proud. When morning came, Do-yoon was still at his desk. He had not moved. He had not eaten. He had just sat there, listening for any sound from the storage room. There had been no sounds. Maybe he had imagined the whole thing. Maybe he had fallen asleep at his desk and dreamed it. Maybe he was losing his mind. The office door opened and Kim Yuna walked in. Yuna was the office manager. She was a practical woman in her 30s who wore simple clothes and kept her hair short. Nothing ever seemed to surprise her. She had once handled a shipping emergency involving 17 tons of live fish and a broken refrigeration unit. She had solved it in 2 hours without raising her voice. "You look terrible," she said to Do-yoon. "Did you sleep here?" "There is something in the storage room," Do-yoon said. His voice was flat. He sounded like a man who had seen too much. "What do you mean? Like a rat?" "No, not a rat. Something else. Something with eyes. Many eyes." Yuna put down her bag. She looked at Do-yoon carefully. He did not seem drunk. He did not seem crazy. He seemed scared, which was strange because Do-yoon was usually a calm person. "Show me," she said. They walked down the hall together. Do-yoon stayed behind Yuna, which she noticed but did not mention. They stopped at the storage room door. Yuna could hear something inside. A wet, shifting sound. Like waves on a dark beach. She opened the door. The creature was still there. It had grown larger during the night. It now filled half the corner of the room. Its surface was covered with eyes of every color. Some were human eyes. Some were not. They all turned to look at Yuna. Yuna looked at the creature for a long moment. The creature looked back at her. "Wow," Yuna said finally. "We should probably not tell HR about this." Do-hyun stared at her. "That is your reaction? Look at that thing." "I'm looking at it." "What do you want me to do? Scream?" "That will not help." Yuna tilted her head, studying the creature. "It has not attacked you. It has been here all night, and it did not attack you." "That is interesting." "Interesting is not the word I would use." Yuna ignored him. She was thinking. The creature was clearly dangerous. It looked dangerous. It felt dangerous. But it had not hurt Do-hyun. It had just watched him. Like it was waiting for something. "I am going to close this door now," Yuna said to the creature, as if it could understand her. "Please stay in there. We have work to do." She closed the door. The creature did not try to stop her. Do-hyun followed Yuna back to the main office. "We need to call someone." "The police." "The army." "Someone." "And tell them what?" "There is a monster in our storage room." "They will think we are crazy." Yuna sat down at her desk. "Let me think about this." They worked in silence for an hour. Yuna answered emails. Do-hyun tried to focus on his computer screen, but kept looking toward the hallway. The creature stayed quiet. Around noon, Yuna stood up. She went to the small kitchen area and opened the refrigerator. She found some leftover kimbap from yesterday's lunch. She also filled a bowl with water. "What are you doing?" Do-hyun asked. "It has been in there all night. It might be hungry." "You are going to feed the monster?" "I am going to see what happens." Yuna walked down the hall. Do-hyun followed her, staying far behind. Yuna opened the storage room door. The creature was still there. It seemed bigger than before. Its many eyes watched her as she placed the bowl of water and the container of kimbap on the floor. "Here," she said. "Eat if you want. Or do not. It is up to you." She closed the door and walked away. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the creature moved toward the food. It had been attacked many times before when approaching bait. It had learned to be careful. But there was no trap here. No poison. No hidden weapons. Just water and rice and vegetables wrapped in seaweed. The creature consumed the kimbap. It was the first time in centuries that it had eaten something that was given freely. Something that was not a trap. Something that was offered with no intention of harm. The creature did not understand. But it was curious. By the afternoon, the creature had moved to the break room. It settled under the small table where the employees ate their lunches. Its body was smaller now, more compact. Its eyes were fewer. It was still watching everything, but it seemed less tense. The office door opened and a young woman walked in. This was Lee Ji-woo, the company receptionist. She was 24 years old and had a talent for remaining cheerful in any situation. She hung up her coat and walked toward the break room to make tea. She saw the creature under the table. Do-hyun jumped up from his desk. "Ji-woo, wait, do not." "Oh," Ji-woo said brightly. "We have a pet now, cute." She stepped over the creature and turned on the electric kettle. The creature watched her. It had never been called cute before. It did not know how to process this information. Ji-woo made her tea and sat down at the table. The creature was directly beneath her feet. She did not seem concerned. "Does it have a name?" she asked. "It is not a pet," Do-hyun said weakly. "It is... I do not know what it is." "Everything needs a name," Ji-woo said. She looked down at the creature. "I will call you Dubu. You look soft like tofu." The creature, which had destroyed civilizations, which had consumed thousands of beings, which was feared across the galaxy, was now named after a soy product far above the Earth. Commander Relos received a transmission. Local reports were coming in from the planet's surface. Strange sightings. Something dark and shapeless had been spotted in a coastal city called Busa. Relos checked the coordinates. His blood ran cold. That is where the cargo ship was headed, his officer said. A small trading company. Human-owned. Relos gathered his soldiers. They were the best warriors in the galaxy. They had trained for years to fight creatures like Specimen X-0. They carried weapons that could burn through steel. They wore armor that could stop most attacks. They were ready to die. Prepare for ground assault, Relos ordered. We will arrive in 3 days. We must contain the creature before it spreads. He imagined what they would find. Bodies. Destruction. A city in ruins. The creature would have grown powerful from feeding. It would be nearly impossible to stop. He did not imagine what was actually happening. He could not have imagined it at that moment, thousands of light years away. The most dangerous creature in recorded history was curled up under a breakroom table, being fed crackers by a cheerful receptionist who kept calling it cute. The universe was a strange place, but this was something new. 3 days passed. 3 very strange days. Dubu, as everyone now called the creature, had become part of the office routine. It stayed mostly in the break room during the day. At night, it moved around the building, exploring. It never broke anything. It never threatened anyone. It just watched and waited, and sometimes ate whatever food was left out for it. Daya slowly stopped being afraid. It was hard to stay afraid of something that liked instant noodles and purred when Jiwoo scratched its surface. Yes, it purred. Not like a cat exactly. More like a deep rumble that shook the floor a little. But it was definitely a happy sound. Yuna kept things organized, as always. She made a schedule for feeding Dubu. She put up a small sign that said, "Please, do not leave sharp objects near the break room." Table. She treated the situation like any other office. Problem that needed managing. On the 3rd day, Choi Yoonji came down from the 2nd floor to get coffee. Yoonji was an accountant. She was very serious and did not like surprises. She saw Dubu under the table and froze. "What is that?" she said. It was not really a question. "That is Dubu," Jiwoo explained. "Our office pet." "That is not a pet." "That is." "I do not know what that is." "It likes tofu and crackers. It is very friendly once you get used to it." Anji looked at the creature. The creature looked back at her with 17 different eyes. Yoonji decided that she could get coffee from the vending machine on the street instead. She left quickly, but not everyone ran away. Bae Sunho, the elderly janitor, met Dubu on his evening shift. He was 72 years old and had served in the Korean military decades ago. He had seen many strange things in his life. A living shadow monster was new, but not impossible to accept. "You are very big," he told Dubu. "But you are in my way. I need to mop this floor." Dubu moved aside. Sunho mopped the floor. After that, Sunho would talk to Dubu during his shifts. He told the creature stories about his life. Dubu listened. It was the first time anyone had talked to it like it was a person. Then Commander Relos arrived. The Galactic fleet appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday afternoon. 20 warships, carrying 500 of the most elite soldiers in the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy buildings. They had shields that could block most attacks. They were ready for war. Relos led the ground team himself. They landed in Bazin and surrounded the building that housed Hambit Interstellar Logistics. Local police tried to stop them, but Relos showed his Galactic Council authority and they backed away. "The creature is inside. Relos told his soldiers. Expect heavy resistance. Do not hesitate. Shoot to kill. They broke down the front door. They stormed into the building. They found Dohin at his desk, eating ramen from a paper cup. Oh, Dohin said, looking up at the armed aliens filling his office. Hello, can I help you? Relos pushed past him. His soldiers spread out, weapons raised. They checked every room. They looked under every desk. Finally, they found the break room. Dubu was there, curled under the table as usual. It was sleeping peacefully, its many eyes closed. Specimen X0, Relos whispered. After all these years. We found you. Dubu opened its eyes. All of them, at once. It saw the weapons. It saw the armor. It recognized the threat. In an instant, the creature changed. Its soft body grew hard. Spines burst from its surface like needles. It became twice its size. A sound came from it, low and terrible, like a growl from deep underground. The soldiers opened fire. Bright beams of energy hit the creature, but they barely left marks. Dubu lashed out with a newly formed limb and struck two soldiers, throwing them across the room. Their armor cracked on impact. Fall back. Relos shouted. Everyone fall back. More soldiers rushed in. More weapons fired. The break room was filling with smoke and noise and chaos. Dubu was growing larger by the second, feeding on the aggression around it, becoming the monster it had been for thousands of years. Then a voice cut through the noise. Stop! Everyone froze. Even Dubu paused. Eunice stood in the doorway. Her face was calm, but her eyes were furious. She walked into the room, stepping over fallen soldiers, ignoring the weapons pointed in every direction. What do you think you are doing? She demanded. You broke our door. You shut up our break room. Do you have any idea how much this will cost to repair? Relos stared at her. Ma'am, please step away. That creature is extremely dangerous. It has killed thousands. It has been living here for 3 days. Yuna interrupted. It has killed no one. It eats crackers and sleeps under the table. The only danger here is you and your guns. She walked past Relos. She walked toward Dubu. The soldiers watched in horror as this small human woman approached the deadliest creature in the galaxy. Enough. Yuna said firmly to Dubu. Stop that. They are being rude, but you do not need to fight them. She placed a cup on the floor. It was coffee. Instant coffee, cheap and bitter, but warm. Here, she said. Drink this. Calm down. The room was silent. Everyone watched the creature. Slowly, very slowly, the spines retracted. The extra mass pulled back. The eyes softened. Dubu shrank back to its usual size and moved toward the coffee cup. It consumed the coffee. The growling stopped. The creature looked almost embarrassed, if such a thing was possible. Relos could not speak. He had seen many things in 200 years of service. He had never seen anything like this. A human woman had just stopped a rampaging monster with a cup of instant coffee. How? He finally managed. How is this possible? Yuna looked at him. You came here with weapons. You attacked it. Of course, it fought back. What did you expect? It is a killer. It has destroyed entire civilizations. Maybe those civilizations attacked it first. Relos opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked at the creature under the table. It was watching Yuna with something in its eyes that Relos had never seen before. It was not hunger. It was not rage. It was trust. I need to report this to the council, Relos said quietly. This changes everything. He walked out of the break room. His soldiers followed, carrying their injured. The battle was over before it really started. Yuna stayed behind. She sat down at the break room table. Dabu moved closer to her, its body warm against her feet. "You need to control your temper," she told the creature. "We cannot have you growing spines every time someone upsets you. This is an office, not a battlefield." Dabu made a small sound. It might have been an apology. It was hard to tell. Doyun appeared in the doorway. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" "I heard explosions and everything is fine," Yuna said. "We had some difficult visitors. They are gone now." She looked at the destroyed break room. The walls were scorched. The table was cracked. The coffee machine was completely destroyed. "I am going to need you to fill out an incident report," she told Dohyun. "And we are going to need a new coffee machine." Dohyun nodded weakly. Of course, an incident report. For the alien invasion, they just survived. That made perfect sense. He went to find the proper forms. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The deadliest creature in recorded history had been tamed. Not by warriors. Not by weapons. Not by science. By humans. By strange, soft, short-lived humans who gave it snacks and talked to it like a friend. Nobody believed in it first. Then the videos appeared. Security footage from the office showed Jiwoo feeding crackers to a creature that had once eaten a starship crew. News drones captured images of Dabu sleeping peacefully under a breakroom table. A clip of Sunho teaching the creature to fetch a broom went viral across. 17 star systems. Scientists came from every corner of the galaxy. They wanted to study this impossible thing. They set up monitoring equipment in the office hallways. They took readings and measurements. They watched and waited and tried to understand. The office became very crowded. Dohyun could barely walk to his desk without stepping over some alien researcher. Yuna had to make new rules about equipment placement. Jiwoo greeted every visitor with the same cheerful smile, even the ones who had tentacles instead of faces. Dabu watched all of this with interest. It had never been studied before. Usually, beings tried to kill it or run from it. They did not sit in corners taking notes. It did not know what to think about this. One scientist, a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms, finally published a report. Her name was Vila, and she had spent her whole life studying dangerous species. She had never seen anything like Dabu. "We were wrong about Specimen X0, she announced at a press conference that was broadcast across the galaxy. Completely wrong. For thousands of years, we classified it as a predator, an unstoppable killer, a monster. But that is not what it is." The reporters leaned forward. Even Commander Rilus, watching from his ship, paid close attention. "Specimen X0 is a survival-based organism," Vela explained. "It does not attack because it wants to. It attacks because it has been attacked. Every civilization that encountered it treated it as a threat. They sent warriors. They used weapons. They tried to cage it and kill it. And the creature adapted. It became what they expected it to be." She showed images on a screen. Pictures of Dabu from over the centuries. In every one, it was fighting, running, destroying, always alone, always hunted. For 4,000 years, every environment this creature entered was hostile, Vela continued. So it became hostile in return. That is how it survived. That is all it knew. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Then it came to Earth. It entered a small office in a city called Bizon, and something different happened. New images appeared. Yuna placing food on the floor. Jiwoo scratching Dabu's surface while chatting about her weekend. Sunho mopping the floor while the creature watched peacefully. The humans did not attack. They did not run. They did not even seem very impressed. They simply accepted the creature. They gave it food. They gave it space. They talked to it. They treated it like it was not a monster. Vila looked at the camera. And for the first time in 4,000 years, Specimen X0 was not treated as a threat. So it stopped being one. The galaxy was silent, thinking about what this meant. Back in the office, life continued as normal. Or as normal as it could be, with a famous alien creature living under the breakroom table. U was changing. Everyone could see it. Its body was softer now. Its many eyes had reduced to just a few, and they were gentler somehow. It had stopped growing spines when startled. It had started making sounds that almost seemed like words. Jiwoo taught it to recognize its name. When she called, Dabu. Across the office, the creature would raise part of itself and wave, like a dog hearing its owner. Dong still found this deeply strange, but he was getting used to it. Sunho became Dabu's favorite. The old janitor would spend his breaks sitting next to the creature, telling stories about his life. His time in the military, his late wife, his grandchildren who lived in Seoul. Dabu listened to all of it, absorbing not just his words but his calm presence. One day, Sunho asked the creature a question. Do you understand me? Really understand? Dabu moved closer to him. Its surface rippled. Something was happening. The researchers nearby grabbed their equipment and started recording. A small opening formed on Dabu's surface. It looked almost like a mouth. A sound came out. Rough and strange, but clear. Yes, Sunho smiled. The researchers gasped. It was the first word Dabu had ever spoken. The first word in 4,000 years of existence. After that, more words came. Slowly at first, then faster. Dabu learned by listening. It learned names. It learned please and thank you. It learned sorry, which it used when it accidentally knocked things over with its body. The accountants stopped being afraid. She started leaving her old documents near Dabu. The creature loved to shred paper. It made a happy rumbling sound while tearing documents into tiny pieces. Yoonji told everyone it was helping with file management. Then came the incident with the Galactic Council official. His name was Director Vaughn. He was a high-ranking member of the Council's security division. He did not believe the reports about Dabu. He did not believe a monster could become peaceful. He flew to Earth personally to take the creature into proper containment. This is for everyone's safety, he told Yuna. He had brought soldiers with him. Many soldiers. The creature will be transported to a secure facility where it can be properly studied. It is being studied here, Yuna replied. It is happy here. Happiness is not a factor. Security is. He gestured to his soldiers. They moved toward the break room. Dabu watched them come. Its body tensed. Old instincts were waking up. Danger was approaching. But then it remembered. Yuna had told it to control its temper. Jiwoo had said, fighting made things worse. Sunho had said that sometimes the bravest thing was to stay calm. So when the soldiers reached for Dabu, the creature did not attack. Instead, it did something new. The mouth shape formed again. This time, the word was clear and strong. No, Director Vaughn stopped. Excuse me? No, Dabu repeated. Stay here, home. The soldiers looked at each other. They had been prepared for violence. They had not been prepared for this. It speaks now, Yuna said calmly. It has opinions. It has rights. You cannot take it anywhere it does not want to go. Vaughn's face turned colors that Do-hyun did not know faces could turn. This is ridiculous. It is a specimen. A dangerous specimen. It is a guest, Jiwoo said firmly. And guests are treated with respect. The standoff lasted for 2 hours. In the end, Vaughn had to leave empty-handed. The creature had spoken. It had made a choice. Under galactic law, a speaking creature could not be forcibly contained without cause. That night, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. They discussed what to do. Some wanted the creature destroyed. Some wanted it studied forever. Some wanted to pretend none of this had happened. But in the end, they could not ignore the truth. Specimen X0 had done something impossible. It had chosen peace. It had chosen loyalty. It had chosen a small office on a backwater planet as its home dot, and somehow, against all odds, it had family. When Dabu heard about the council's debates, it did not understand most of it. Politics and laws were complicated, but it understood one thing clearly. The humans had protected it. They had stood between Dabu and danger. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. That night, Dabu moved from the break room to Do-Hyun's desk. It settled into the space underneath, pressing against his feet. Warm and soft and present. "What are you doing?" Do-Hyun asked. The creature made a sound. It was learning new words every day, but some things were still hard to express. What it wanted to say was, "You were the first one. You saw me and did not run. You let me stay." What it said was simpler. "Thank you." Do-Hyun felt something strange in his chest. He reached down and patted Dabu's surface. The creature hummed happily. Outside, the galaxy was still debating what to do. But inside this small office in Bizen, something important had already been decided. Dub was home. 6 months later, Hambit Interstellar Logistics was the most famous office in the galaxy. Tour ships flew past Earth, just so passengers could look at the small blue planet where the impossible had happened. News channels broadcast updates about the Bizen miracle every week. Reporters from 100 different species requested interviews. Most of them were politely refused by Yuna, who had become very good at saying no to aliens. The office itself had not changed much. Yuna had insisted on that. "This is still a workplace," she told everyone. "We still have shipments to manage. We still have deadlines to meet." So apart from the security barriers outside and the occasional scientist in the hallway, things continued mostly as before. Dabu now had its own desk. Well, not exactly a desk. It was the space under Do-Hyun's desk, which had been officially registered as Dabu's workspace. Jiwoo had made a nameplate. It said, "Dabu, Office Support Specialist in both Korean and Galactic Common." The creature had a salary too. Yuna had insisted on that as well. "If it works here, it gets paid," she said. Nobody argued with her. The money went into a savings account that Do-Hyun managed. "For emergencies," Yuna explained. Dabu did not understand money, but it liked the idea of having something saved. The work Dabu did was simple. It shredded old documents, which made Yoonji happy. It fetched cleaning supplies for Sungho. It listened when Jiwoo needed to talk about her problems. It sat with Do-Hyun during late nights, keeping him company while he worked on reports. Small things. Important things. The Galactic Council had officially reclassified Specimen X0. It was no longer labeled as an existential threat. The new classification was Protected Sapient Entity under Human Guardianship. Commander Raylos himself had signed the documents. Raylos visited sometimes. He still could not quite believe what had happened, but he was learning to accept it. He brought Dabu snacks from other worlds, dried fruits from jungle planets, crystallized nectar from the hives of giant space bees. Dabu ate everything and seemed to enjoy most of it. "I spent 200 years preparing to fight this creature," Raylos said once, watching Dabu happily consume something that looked like blue cotton candy. "I never imagined I would end up feeding it treats." "Life is strange," Do-Hyun replied. He was used to Raylos now. The eight-limbed commander was not so scary once you got to know him. "It is," Raylos agreed, "especially here." Tourists came to Bizen from across the galaxy. They wanted to see the famous creature that had chosen peace. Most of them were disappointed. They expected something dramatic, a massive beast, a terrifying monster. What they found was a blob-shaped thing sleeping in a sunny spot near the window, occasionally making small, contented sounds. "It looks like a large pillow," one tourist complained. "It looks happy," another observed. Both were correct. Dabu had changed so much in 6 months. Its body was smaller now, softer. It had only 2 eyes most of the time, large and warm like dark pools. It had learned dozens of words and was learning more every day. It could express opinions. It could make jokes, though its sense of humor was strange. It could say the names of everyone in the office and did so every morning as a greeting. "Good morning, Yuna. Good morning, Doyun. Good morning, Jiwoo. Good morning, Sunho. Good morning, Yoonji." Every day, without fail. Like a ritual, the scientists eventually left. They had learned everything they could. Their final report concluded that Dubu was no longer the same creature that had escaped from Containment Station Omega-7. That creature had been shaped by violence and fear. This creature had been shaped by something else entirely. The report used scientific words, like environmental adaptation and behavioral modification. But the truth was simpler. Dabu had been shown kindness for the first time in 4,000 years. And it had responded. One evening, Do-hyun was working late again. The quarterly reports were due, just like always. Some things never changed. Yuna had gone home hours ago. Jiwoo was at a friend's birthday party. Sunho had finished his shift. Yoonji was probably still upstairs, but she never came down at night. Do-hyun was alone, except he was not alone. Not anymore. Dubu was under his desk, warm against his feet. The creature was making a soft humming sound. It had learned this from the radio that Jiwoo kept on her desk. The song was something old and gentle. Do-hyun did not know the name. He reached down and patted Dobu's surface. The creature rumbled happily. "You know," Do-hyun said, "you are pretty good company." Dobu shifted, pressing closer to him. Its voice was soft but clear. "You too." They sat together in the quiet office. Outside, the city of Bazan was alive with lights and sounds. Above, the stars stretched across the sky. Thousands of worlds where Dabu's story was now legend. The creature had lived for 4,000 years. It had crossed the galaxy. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. It had been hunted by the greatest warriors ever born. It had killed thousands. It had been called monster, demon, nightmare. And now it was here, in a small office, with a man who had been too tired to run away and too busy to be scared. Do-hyun thought about the first night, standing in the doorway of that storage room, seeing those eyes in the darkness. He should have been terrified. He should have called for help. He should have done something sensible. Instead, he had asked the creature not to be a problem because he had reports to finish. It was such a human thing to do, so ordinary, so strange. And somehow, against all logic, it had been exactly right. "Dabu," he said softly. "Yes? Are you happy here?" The creature was silent for a moment. It was thinking. This was a big question. Happiness was a new concept. Creatures that were hunted did not think about happiness. They thought about survival. But Dabu was learning that there was more to existence than just surviving. "Yes," it finally said. "Happy. Home." 2 words. Simple words. But they meant everything. The galaxy had feared the monster. They had built prisons for it and armies against it. They had spent centuries trying to destroy something they did not understand. The humans had given it a desk and a snack. They had talked to it like it was a person. They had shown it that life could be soft and warm and good. And in the end, that made all the difference. Do-hyun smiled. He went back to his reports. Dabu hummed along to the radio. The night was quiet and peaceful. Somewhere out in the stars, other creatures were still being hunted. Other monsters were still being feared. But maybe, If the story of Dabu spread far enough, things would begin to change. Maybe others would learn what the humans had accidentally discovered. That sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe just needs someone to be kind to it. That sometimes a monster is only a monster because no one ever gave it a chance to be something else. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not fight, but offer a cup of coffee and say, "It is okay. You can stay." The last line Dabu ever spoke that night, before it fell asleep under the desk, was one it had learned from Sunho. "Thank you for finding me." Do-yoon did not respond. His throat was too tight to speak. He just reached down and patted the creature one more time. Outside, the stars continued to shine. The galaxy continued to turn. And in a small office in Bizen, a monster slept peacefully, dreaming of nothing at all. It did not need to dream anymore. Everything it wanted was already here,